Welcome to the Primo's Musings podcast.
Good evening, Mel. How are you doing, sir?
I'm well, Sri. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm rocking the national T-shirt again, so it's awesome to see that. So
The
I
only
think the last
T-shirt I brought,
time,
Sri. It's the only T-shirt I brought.
okay, I think Pete will be really happy about it. Captain Pete will be happy about the national, the fact that you are on the Nationals T-shirt. You're wearing the Nationals one. But
Oh,
anyway, I think last time we left off, I think we left off in Wyoming. I think you were in Grand Teton. I think that's where you were, I think. And then you since moved on to you wrote a couple blogs, but the second one was, I think I do want to spend a lot of time on that one because that really moved me a lot, just like it moved you as well. But I think quickly going down to, let's pick off where we left off in Wyoming, and then looks like you had one of the longest ride to date, and then you went to the bar. I think you saw a guitar trio playing blues, and then the other thing you also had some of the um where you were camping by the big old river. So let's get to business and hear your thoughts since you left Wyoming, your experiences going through the great land of United States into Montana.
yeah. So when we left off, I was in the Grand Tetons. From there, we actually took a shuttle, our van, into Yellowstone because Yellowstone will not allow a group of cyclists to enter the park. Once you're in the park, you can ride wherever you want. They're worried about the traffic on the roads that access the park. So we vanned in and did a 35-mile ride to our campground right past Old Faithful. So we got to stop at the Old Faithful site. Not all of us, and I did not, waited for it to explode because it takes a long time, and you're on a bike ride, and time is miles and energy, and but we enjoyed that. And I will say this: if you arrive at Old Faithful on a bicycle, you will have very little difficulty parking. If you arrive in a car, you could be driving around for an hour. So that's a bonus. And then we rode through the rest of Yellowstone, which has these amazing hot springs and smaller geysers. You know,
Mm.
was only the one that happens to be the biggest, and it happens to be on a regular time schedule. Others are spitting out hot fluids. So we rode through to an amazing campground at Madison Junction in the western side of Yellowstone. And Madison Junction is named for the confluence of the Madison River and the Rock Fire River. And the Rock Fire River, of course, is fed by these hot springs that from Old Faithful and beyond. And I had the opportunity in that to walk into the meadow where these two rivers meet, and there's all kinds of pockets of water and wetlands and ducks and other interesting plant life, and got to walk into the river where these two rivers meet. And the cold water is coming in from the Madison, and the warm water is coming in from the Rock Fire River. And just really a special moment at that site earlier. And later that day, we were able to see an elk grazing on the hillside there. A lot of bison in Yellowstone. Uh, I am writing a blog about Tetons in Yellowstone, but I want to be able to put a lot of time into it because there was a lot going on there. So I'll talk
Mm.
about that probably after the trip. But things. So I haven't done a lot of. You haven't seen a lot of the pictures, but I have. I have a picture. We were on the second day we were in Yellowstone. We had a day off. Our leader took us on a van trip around the entire rest of the southern loop of Yellowstone. So it's like a 60 some mile ride so that we got the full loop. And at one point, we are in a traffic jam because there are two bison walking side by side down the middle of the road.
Then you probably how long was the traffic stop there?
It wasn't that long actually. We got by it. It was 5 minutes. It was, but we were able to. We were right up front and seeing these bison come walking down the road. It was very very cool. What else did we see going in? A lot of great bird life in Yellowstone. Uh, and Yellowstone Canyon is amazing. There's the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone that is about a 40-mile long stretch where the Yellowstone River has carved over millions of years, a canyon that is hundreds and hundreds of feet deep, maybe 200, 300 feet wide. The rocks on either side of the canyon are spectacular colors and images of eons and epics. And so that was really, really good. We got to spend a lot of time at different spots along the canyon.
Hey, Mel, I was going to ask you this, but did you encounter, because Yellowstone happens to be um, one of the most important grizzly bear habitats in the lower United States, any sightings of grizzly bears?
Had no sightings of I had no sightings of grizzlies. I saw one black bear, actually a juvenile, not a cub, but probably a year or two old. And there was another group in our group, riders and one of the guides, who said that they may have seen what they thought was an immature grizzly on the
Hmm.
day we left the park. But I did not see. The only thing I saw was a black bear. We saw bison, elk, yeah, no
Yeah,
grizzlies. Actually, that's a good thing because
yeah,
they're scary animals, right? I mean, they can.
yeah.
And by the way, when you're in these campgrounds, camping in Yellowstone and the Tetons both, there are bear boxes, which are these vaults that are tough for a human to open. They have all kinds of tricky little latches on them that you gotta feed your hand in order to avoid bears who are pretty smart from figuring it out. So all your food goes in there, all your cosmetics, your toothpaste, your soap, sunscreen, anything that might smell good to a bear, nowhere near your tent. So
Yeah.
no grizzlies, thankfully.
No grizzlies. Okay. Yeah. The
All
one
right.
other
So
thing. Yeah. Go ahead.
anyway, so then we left. Um, we had 2 nights in Yellowstone. We left Yellowstone. As we're leaving Yellowstone, before we actually leave the park, we crossed the border into Montana because Yellowstone's partly in Montana. And from there, we have been riding, as you may have read in my blog about, Montana means mountains. This part of Montana, which is the southwest corner, is mountainous. And not only is it mountainous, but it's different than the Rockies in Colorado, different than the mountains in Utah, in that there are ranges all over the place. And they're not in, they're in other places they seem to run north south. Here they're just all over the place. And then
Mm.
we've been crossing them every day, at least one pass a day. We had one day where we had to climb two different passes split up by 30 some miles. The second pass was difficult for everybody. You do a serious climb in the morning, then you ride 30 miles, and now you're being asked to do another 5 mile slog,
All clients.
full blown climb where you're barely moving. It's like,
Wow.
um, so anyway, Montana has been beautiful. I mean, I actually enjoy the passes. I don't enjoy it while I'm riding on them. I mean, I am questioning myself at any moment. Am I going to get off the bike? Am I going to push this bike over the hill by foot? You're doubting it because you're pushing harder and harder, and there's still, and you look, the goal is not to look ahead. You got to look at the pavement that's under your feet, because if you look ahead, it can be just so depressing to see these long stretches of climbs. But yeah, so,
You're living in the moment then.
yeah, and then I talk about it in that other blog. It's a time to think and reflect, and that one day. So we've been in Montana now, what, like 5 days. Um that climb over the Chief Joseph Pass, I did it by myself because I had decided I was on cook crew the night before, meaning I had to help clean up in the morning and set up. And I said, I'm not leaving early. I'm going on my own. One other guy rode with me. He's a fast rider. We rode pretty fast to that visitor center. And then I said to him, you go. Don't worry about me. I'm going to do this on my own. and
Mm.
so you get a lot of time to think. Good and yeah, good things, and sometimes challenging things, as I mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, a couple of things that you mentioned, Montana
Hold
blog
on one
too.
second, because I got somebody cruising through here. Okay, go ahead.
All right, that's cool. Uh, One of the things as we're thinking is that while Mel is talking
Hold on a
to
second.
one of the
Cleaning.
climbers,
No, I'm trying to
yeah,
get out of it.
Okay.
yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Sri. Maybe you'll let it.
That's okay. This is okay. This is all part of that. That's what it's the whole point about these things is, things
Spontaneous.
happen and then we just move on, right? I think this is good. The one thing I wanted to talk about was that you did mention about one of the earthquakes that happened in 1959
Yeah.
that measured pretty high on the Richter scale at 7.5. Want to talk a little bit about that, and then also about your visit to the local salon, and then also your the guitar trio that you mentioned.
Yeah. So the lake, what's called Earthquake Lake, um, was created. So I mentioned the Madison River. We
Yeah.
stayed on the Madison River in Yellowstone. We rode from Yellowstone for days along the Madison River. Um, I think it was the day that we were leaving. Yeah, the day we left Yellowstone, we get into this long valley. It's probably 40 miles long that is
Hmm.
carved by the Madison River. And there's a reservoir there that was built a long time ago with a dam, and it, helped probably supplies water to a lot of, and it's just beautiful ground, and people have cabins there, and they camp there, and in this incident occurs in 1959, where it was at the time the largest recorded, or the strongest recorded earthquake in the United States.
Hmm.
And half of a mountain, we saw the half of the mountain that's left, but the other half sheared off and fell into the valley. 80 million tons of
Of rock.
soil and debris. And the pile is still there. It didn't go anywhere. You don't pick up and move that. They did carve a space for the water and the river to create this second lake. But
And that's the picture you have in the blog, right? That's the picture you have in the blog, or
I think the picture I took is of the reservoir, because the lake,
oh,
I don't know. Yeah, that's the reservoir, I think. I don't think that's the lake. I wasn't able to
okay.
get a good picture of the lake as much as I would have liked. I think we were riding by the earthquake lake when it was pouring with rain.
Hmm.
We had quite a bit of rain that morning. We rode, yeah, probably 20 miles in the rain. Anyway, so Earthquake Lake is fascinating, and unfortunately, 28 people lost their lives when this mountain collapsed, and it created this second lake. And the lake is interesting because it still has trees standing in it. Tree trunks of pine trees that were consumed into the lake are still
Hmm.
standing in different places of the lake. Um, so what else? Did you ask me to talk about something else?
Oh yeah, the other thing is like you went to a salon after some of you went to a
A
dinner.
saloon. It's a saloon. Wait, it's a saloon.
Saloon. Sorry, it's a saloon. Yeah.
I'm thinking, like, did I go get a haircut or a shave? I don't think
No.
so. A saloon.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we were in, what was the town? It was Ennis. It was Ennis,
Ennis. Yeah.
Montana, which is just an adorable country western town. I'm telling you, you would expect Clint Eastwood to come walking down the other side of the street with a six gun on his hip. It's that kind of. The town has wooden sidewalks, cool verandas over the sidewalk, places to tie up your horse if you have one. Anyway, so we went to. We've been. I've been missing live music. I am a huge fan of live music. It doesn't matter if it's
Hmm.
Bruce Springsteen or Miss Noah, nothing about, never heard of her in a coffee house. I just like hearing music. I like seeing musicians play
Hmm.
their music. Anyway, so in Ennis, we thought, we had heard that there would be possible opportunities for live music, and we went and we called around and we found this saloon that had this trio playing. Um, the cool thing was that we walked in, and they're playing Ramblin' Rose, which is a Grateful
The
Dead.
Grateful Dead.
And I am a huge Grateful Dead fan, and I play that song on my guitar a lot. I've been playing it for years. So I love it. I know all the words. It's beautiful. And that was the only Grateful Dead song they played. After that, it was all country, and maybe they think they played it country style, I guess. Anyway, that was fun. It was a woman who had a good voice, but she was playing a beautiful Gibson guitar. I'm a fan of guitars, and that was fun to just see that. And then she had next to her this fellow who looked very cowboy proper, plaid shirt. Yeah, there's the picture of him, right? And he had a great cowboy voice, deep, country voice. And so he sang some songs. And then the other guy, who happened to be barefoot, not the first time I've seen a guitar player barefoot, but
And I'm seeing on the picture, you're right. I didn't notice it the
but
first time I saw
and he played guitar and mandolin, and they were good. They were good. 2 nights later, we're in Darby, and we go to see this guy from Alabama, Hendrix. His name was Charlie Hendrix, I think,
Hmm.
and he was a pro. I mean, those other people were good. This guy Hendrix was a pro. The unfortunate thing is he drove all the way from Alabama with his producer, who this older woman, um, and there were maybe 11 people watching, 12 people
Oh,
watching.
wow.
But I got to
That's,
have a great conversation with him in between sets. He's going to be in Connecticut actually for July and August, and I may go see him. He's going to be in Manchester at a brewery. Uh,
in the Illicit Brewery. Okay, just call me. I'll be there.
all right, there we
Let's do it.
go.
I love,
We'll make it a tennis outing. Hopefully, it's not a
yes,
Thursday
of
night.
course. Yeah, Dan loves country music too. I think we
Oh,
can rope in
if
Dan.
if Dan likes country music, he would love this guy. This guy was
Okay, all
he's
right.
a pro.
It's a deal. When you
Yeah.
come back to Connecticut,
So,
we're
what
definitely
else?
going
You
to.
asked about the saloon, and then there was one other thing you wanted to know about.
Oh, the other thing is that you mentioned Darby, and I think something I saw in the your blog was that where the Yellowstone series was filmed in Darby.
Yeah.
So that was actually pretty cool
Yeah, I wish I
to
could
see.
offer anything about it. I never watched one episode of
I,
Yellowstone.
I have watched a few episodes and I heard like it's like a must see. So I might actually, now that you mentioned the blog, now I'm going to actually start watching it
All right.
again. I think it
Yeah.
takes a lot of commitment to watch any of these series which go into like multiple seasons. So Yellowstone is something that some lot of many people have mentioned. So I think it's something that we'll watch. But then I think moving on from the previous blog where you had between the salon and between the lakes and between the beautiful landscape that you described and where you camped out at Darby. The next one, I think it may be better if you talk about this in terms of like it's another thing that you said, right? In this journey, you've encountered a lot of great things, but then you've also encountered a lot of things about the lynching that you talked about. And then this was something, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it correct, the Nez Percy Historical Park. And you kind of went in detail. And I had a chance to read it at least twice because I just had to read it over and over. And it's very, very as you said, emotional, and it was very, very, um, I think, very sad to hear what took place. So maybe if you want to talk a little bit about that, and then for the audience to listen from you.
Yeah. So the Napiers were a tribe that occupied large parts of Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Oregon, Idaho. They roamed, they hunted, and they were nomadic. But they had places that they went back and forth to, and they lived there for at least 500 years, according to what I understand. Anyway, I started reading about them, knowing that we were going to be passing through this country where this incident occurred, probably a week before we actually showed up. So I knew a little bit about what had happened.
Hmm.
Um, that there was this battle. I put battle in quotes. It's called a battle, but it was really a slaughter. Um, and uh, so the Napiers have this territory, and in the 1850s, gold is discovered in Colorado and Montana, and uh, and the U.S. government, under pressure from prospectors and others that were making a living off of the gold rush, um, entered into a treaty with leaders of the Napiers to reduce their territory. Didn't create a reservation at that point, but cut their territory access and pretty much down to Montana, Idaho, and parts of Oregon. And then everything's sort of going okay, although there was a group of Napiers that really ignored and didn't participate in the treaty signing. With the chief and everything, they had their system of government. Anyway, 1870s come along and more things, the railroads coming around, and other things are happening, and the Napier and the government now, has a different Indian policy. Right, our government changed its Indian policy over time, and ultimately decided to create this reservation system. And they basically said to the Napiers in a treaty that you're going to be living on a reservation, and this is where it's going to be. It's in Montana, and it was pretty small compared to obviously what they were used to um, hunting over centuries. Anyway, so a group of them, led by this chief Joseph, decides that they're not going to go on to the reservation, and they're heading north to Canada. 600 of them. Their line, and the way they rode through the wilderness was in a single line. You see in movies, single line. And the line was long, 600, and it was children, and it was women and men, and they were hunting and whatever. In the meantime, the U.S. military, who doesn't really know their plan, is watching them and sends a, a division to directly encounter them. And that division apparently has some civilian volunteers who are, call them what you will, vigilantes. I don't know. Participating, and the story is told in this film that we watched in this visitor center in this valley, is that there was firing by the U.S. side on the Napiers. They were sleeping. It was the middle of the night, August 9th, 1877, and they were killing children and women. The men, more of the men survived. They were trying to develop some kind of a plan to defend the encampment, and they were all in teepees. And there's actually poles from teepees in the meadow still to this day. Well, not still, but that were erected at a memorial service some time ago. And the river, they're right on the banks of this amazingly beautiful river that sits at the base of these mountains, the Bitterroot Mountains, and they got slaughtered. A number of the teepees were lit on fire. Children died burned, in their sleep. So it was terrible, and I knew some of the stories. And as you ride into this, I think I had a picture in my blog of the visitors center. Created it created a bit of the way it sat in the landscape. Started, I think, to me anyway, to tell a story. And then when you walk up to the front of it, there's this sign. I took a picture of it and put it in my blog about, you come into our house, you are like our family. That's how that was the culture of the Napiers, um, and that they're happy you're here, even though this is a really tough spot to be at, because then you're honoring the departed. Anyway, so I was moved going into it, and then we saw this movie, which was very moving, and this is the ancestors of some of the survivors who talked about the screaming, and that they still hear the screaming, which I can believe. I almost could hear it. It was that striking that in such a beautiful place there would be this terrible, terrible incident. And so I watched the movie, and then I walked out and looked out on the field and tried to appreciate the number of people who died there senselessly, including Americans, not just the Indians. The Americans were took a big beating. They had 180 of them, so they lost 34. It's a big number, and they had a huge number of wounded. Ultimately, Napiers won the battle. And then Chief Joseph says no more.
No more.
Or he knew that he couldn't, and yet there was still a group that ended up making their way to Canada, and are still there in Canada today. In fact, some of the people on this film were from Canada. Uh,
Mm.
so I then left this facility, and I moved. I was in tears watching the film. I started to ride my bike, and now I'm thinking about this and how sad this is, and facing a 15-mile climb, and started thinking about, what does this mean? What does this? How does this affect me? How does it affect the way I live? How does it affect our country? And all those questions kept circulating in my brain as I'm slowly, slowly, slowly climbing this 15-mile hill. And it really, and I, in doing that, I said, okay, I got to write about this. And actually, even as I was writing about it, I was trying to struggle with, what's the message? And ultimately, I think the message is, how can I, what can I do to make the world a better place? I don't know that I can change the world, but what can I do to make the world a better place? And it was interesting. I was trying to figure out what my last sentence in the blog should be. I wanted to talk about, somehow that by telling this story, I'm doing justice
Mm.
to the people that died. And then I saw in that one of the pictures that I had, the plaque, it talks about honoring the dead by telling the story. So
Mm.
that was actually what happened to me when I left that was the impact it had on me in the visitor center, driving me, I had this climb to do. I'm thinking all about this and saying, what do I do? What can I do? What can I do? And ultimately I decided that what you can do is write this story and share it with people, and hope that they can see other people as human beings in all circumstances. That's what you hope
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, I think one of the things that when I started reading through it, and I think it was very, very sad reading through it, and then I'm sure that you being there and kind of like watching the movie and kind of like reflecting on that during your bike ride. I think a lot of the passage through sorrow and hardship, I think that's what you saw. I think you kind of talked about like the heaviness of the actual incidents that happened there. And I think what you're thinking about is like what transformation can happen from the sadness and the perseverance of all the tribe members actually. So I think it was um, you know glad that you shared that, and for people, not many people even know about this. So I think hopefully hearing from you, I would probably go back and read more about this. I think that's very sad to hear. But I think to your point, I think what kind of the other thing is like what kind of strength can arise from facing something like that. I don't
Yeah,
know. Like I have no idea.
yeah,
So um, I think you kind of finished the blog, in a way that you said, hey, maybe telling the story will pause before demonizing others.
yeah.
Maybe it will provide honor to the souls lost on the August day long ago. I think
I,
you finished it
I
well
hope
there.
so. I hope so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then
So
have
where?
to. I did.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
did want that blog to also have the thrilling experience of racing down the other side of the mountain. Because
Hmm.
it takes, like, I don't know, 15 miles. It must have taken 3 hours to make the climb, maybe slightly less. And then the 7 miles on the other side going downhill takes about 20 minutes. It's like,
Oh wow.
and and the bike just wants to run away, and you got to be just tapping. You pulse your brakes. You can't. If you would have squeezed them nonstop, they would ultimately burn up and disintegrate. They would just, the
Yeah.
heat would just, so you have to just gently touch them here and there, and then you have to.
And you had a lot of hairpin turns too. You mentioned that
Oh my
during that.
gosh, they were amazing. I mean, on a bicycle, and I've done hairpin turns before. This was, I think, maybe the longest descent of certainly this steepness that I had ever done. It was challenging, but yeah, you go into those hairpin turns, and they're slightly banked. They do bank the roads, and yeah, you control your speed. You're not flying. I'm telling you that. You
Yeah.
can't fly through a hairpin turn.
How fast were you going
So I
during when you were
maxed
coming
out. I
down
looked
there?
at my computer. I maxed out at 33. So as a comparison, when I go down Simsbury Road into Simsbury, I'll do 44 miles an hour. So
Hmm.
and that's not as long a hill, but I know that road
Hmm.
like the back of my hand. I know that it's got this beautiful flat, you know, run out at the end that you don't have to do anything. This road, you just can't let it go. There were guys that I think maybe hit 35, 36. We were looking at all our different computers the other night. Um, but it's just, I mean, I'm telling you, you're picking a line. Then there are these enormous motorhomes that are coming behind you and ultimately want to pass you. We had a shoulder. There was about a 5 foot shoulder that was decent, except where the rocks had fallen. And the rocks, this is all avalanche territory, so there's like rocks
Wow.
on the. So for the most part, you try not to be on the shoulder when you're going at that speed down a hill like that. You really want the full lane. But when a motorhome comes along, you got to get out of their way. So I happen to have a mirror that's like right at the bottom of my bar that has an angle on it that shows me what's going on behind me. So for the most part, you're trying to watch out, but sometimes you're going so fast it's hard to watch out. Anyway, it was one
Oh,
of the most thrilling rides that I think I've done some great downhills. I did downhills in the Negev Desert that are amazing, and just all kinds of different places. Anyway, so that was thrilling.
yeah.
Good way to end it.
And then I think you kind of mentioned about the scenery, so you can only look at it from a from the standpoint of peripherally,
Yeah,
because
peripheral. It's all
you can't have
peripheral.
any distractions.
It's all you can
Yeah.
only see what's. I mean, and there are points when you're not even using your peripheral vision because you're so focused. Like when those rocks are on the road, all you're thinking about is don't hit one of those rocks and keep your bike
Yeah.
under control. And but yeah, so you
Hmm.
don't get to see a lot of the scenery when you go at 35 miles an hour or 33 as I was. Um, and even when you're on 25, it's hard. I mean, there were a few times they slowed down. I
Yeah.
actually would have liked to have stopped. I had somebody that was probably 200, 300 yards behind me, and I didn't want to mess him up because, he's kind of following me and I'm following someone in
Yeah.
front of me. So, you got to be careful. Bad things can happen when things,
Yeah.
change up on you.
So, how many miles are you done so far? I know last time we
I got
left
the
it was
number for. I
28.
actually have the number for you. I I
Okay.
did a little research before we got on the podcast. We are at 2,987 miles. Two
Nice.
thousand
So
nine hundred and eighty-seven, and
you got 813 to go.
yeah, tomorrow on our 13-mile point, which will be a climb, we'll be in Lobo Pass. We'll be doing just another climb, and, and yeah, then we will have cleared. We will clear
Wow.
the 3,000, and you know what? We have 15 more riding days. Unbelievable. We've been,
Unbelievable. I can't believe that you only have 15 left. I mean, but I think the amount of, going from the flatlands in the Midwest to the mountains in Montana, I think quite a journey for sure. But I think more importantly, I think through these hardships, I think what you've shared is there is the great parts of the nation, whether it's, talking about a family that's sending 6 people to war, or the sad part about the lynching, or the tribe, uh, you know, thing that you just mentioned, or you talked about visiting some of those places, whether it's live music and a salon, and another live music that you went to. I think you pretty much captured the entire, I would say, the gamut of what you can see in America. So I think there's a lot to digest there for sure. So what do you have planned for the next a week or so, and when can we talk next?
so we are heading into Oregon. First of all, you need to know that when we cross into not quite on the border, but pretty close to the border, we will be moving into the Pacific time zone. It'll be our fourth time zone.
3 hours.
Yeah. So we'll be 3 hours. So that'll be just something you should be aware of, although I usually give you by the Eastern time. Our next off day, I think, is June. Let's see if I can. I don't know if I can get it access to it.
Yep.
Trying.
Yep. And as we're looking at it, yeah, go ahead.
Hold on.
Yeah.
What?
So you are somewhere right now.
So you guys just watching the camera to see exactly all the times.
Yep.
Hold on a second.
Yeah. And while Mel is looking it up, I seriously would encourage everyone to go read those two blogs, Valley of Tears and Montana Means Mountains. There's a lot of very interesting landscapes and interesting stories that not many people have never heard about the 1959 earthquake as well. And in the Valley of Tears, where he talks about the the conflict between the government and the U.S. cavalry and their tribe, which left 93 members dead and 34 U.S. troops dead. I think a lot of good information on that blog. So go ahead, Mel.
Yeah, so we're off next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. We'll be in Baker.
Okay.
We'll be in Baker City, Oregon.
Okay. So that's 24th. Yeah, that should perfectly work.
Hopefully,
for me.
I would expect we'll have Wi-Fi and internet, and we can we'll link up then.
Yeah, where are you right now? Like, where are you? It seems like you're in like a little camp or house.
I'm in a hotel lobby.
Okay.
What are we at? A Days Inn, I think. We stay in pretty pedestrian accommodations. We're not camping, so I guess
you're not camping.
I do love the
I saw pictures,
but it's nice to be in a hotel to have a real shower every so often, and get your laundry done. I got laundry done today. And so we're in Missoula, by the way.
Not like the one in Seneca Lake in Ohio, or where you were camping out in Darby.
Right.
This is an upgrade.
Yep.
I would call it.
And actually, we're not far from the University of Minnesota, the Grizzlies, and so I spent a good part of today on the campus, just walking around, checking it out. It was beautiful weather. They have a huge white M on the side of a mountain about 600 vertical feet above the school, and we climbed the mountain this morning to the M and got a great view of the city and the university. So I'm in a hotel in Missoula. Missoula is the home of the Adventure Cycling Association, which is the organization that put this whole thing together. We went to their offices yesterday, which is kind of a bicycle museum. They have bicycles all over the walls and pictures of their history, which goes back to 1976 when they developed this bike centennial concept. Anyway, that's where I am, and tomorrow we'll be in Idaho.
Nice. So I think thanks again, Mel. Thanks for reaching out and letting me know your availability. I think I know it's very tough, and thank you for making the time to kind of share your journey across America. You're there, you're near the finish line. 2 more weeks, you got this. And then rooting for you to, and I think we've already done, 8 or 9 blogs, starting from the kickoff. So it's, like I said, everybody's looking forward to it because I know I already got a few texts saying, when is your next blog? And I said, when Mel lets me know, I will let you know.
Yeah.
So, so I usually share it with folks as well. I just share the links. So and I post it on my Instagram as well as my WhatsApp status. So I think people can click on it and listen to it. So thanks again, Mel. Have a good rest of the day, and thank you. Just hold on 1 second before I stop the recording. There you go.
Thank you for listening. Primo will be back soon.